Check out my shirt. We're putting the cherry on top in a big way. Coming up, it was a year of rock and pop magic. Today, we do our final top 10 countdown of the neon decade. It was a year that saw a former singer replace his old band at number one with a happy-go-lucky song that most people still don't know is about sex. And then another number one hit that was written while a suave singer was totally asleep. Plus, you had a music critic quit his big-time magazine to go write music. His coworkers mocked him relentlessly till he had one of the biggest hits of the year. And this is the year that included what I believe is the coolest song of all time. I mean, seriously, if I could only listen to one song for the rest of my life, it'd be this one. Can you guess the year? We got special guests and epic stories coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever tried to mix pop rocks with a Coke, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the white button and click the notification bell to always be a part of our upcoming interviews. We have some incredible interviews coming up. And also check us out at professorofrock.com. We have some live streams there, some prizes coming up in the next couple months. Did you guess the year? Ah, a great one. Counting down the top 11 songs out of 1986. Sounds like 86 were full of superstars and established artists such as Phil Collins, Prince, Paul Simon, and Madonna, and emerging legends like Bon Jovi, Sade, and Whitney Houston, who won her first Grammy Award that year. We rediscovered the exciting mix of genres and influences and came up with a top 11. Here it is. Let's kick off the countdown with a song that had one of the most iconic videos of the MTV generation for sure. At number 11, I've got the late Robert Palmer, the James Bond of rock and pop, looking dapper as ever with Addicted to Love. Robert Palmer's biggest hit almost took a much darker turn when he first wrote it. The song was actually called Addicted to Drugs. It was raw, edgy, and maybe a little too real. But then Robert had a change of heart. In the liner notes of his Addictions Volume 1 compilation, he explained, and I quote, "The song could have been about substance abuse, but I lightened it up. Could have been drugs or food or drink. But if you make it love, it's a lot more attractive." It was a cautionary tale that became a seductive anthem for sure. It all began in the middle of the night with a sound that jolted Robert Palmer from his sleep. Kind of. He said, that noisy riff woke me up. I went downstairs, I was half asleep, got out the tape recorder, and then I went back to bed. Next morning I thought, phew, caught one there. That dream-born riff would go on to drive one of the most iconic rock hits of the 80s. Proof that sometimes the best ideas really do come in your sleep. He went on to say that he was half asleep when he did it. He didn't even remember recording it. So Addicted to Love was almost a duet. It was going to be Robert Palmer and Chaka Khan side by side. And that was the original plan at least. But just as the track was coming together, the collaboration hit a wall. Chaka's label wouldn't let her record for Island Records. That was Palmer's label at the time. So her voice never made it into the final cut. Still, her fingerprints remain in the song. She was credited for the vocal arrangements in the album's liner notes. Now, the video for Addicted to Love, classic, featured Robert front and center performing in front of a striking band of women who all looked eerily identical with slick back hair, heavy makeup, and matching black dresses. They stare blankly into the camera as they mime playing instruments. Cool, detached, and impossibly stylish. It was part fashion shoot, part performance art, and one of the most memorable in MTV history for sure. And one that a lot of critics called misogynistic. What do you think? The classic hit climbed to number 5 in the UK, number 4 in Canada, Ireland, and South Africa, number 2 in New Zealand. Of course, was a number 1 smash in Australia and here on the Billboard Hot 100. Coming in at number 10 on the countdown, it's the introspective masterpiece, Holding Back the Years by Simply Red. Now, long before the fame, long before Simply Red topped the charts, there was just a teenager named Mick Hucknall, known to his friends as Red thanks to his fiery hair. He was sitting in his bedroom trying to make sense of a heartache that had followed him really his whole life. He was only 17 when he wrote this song, which is incredible, and pouring his emotions into lyrics shaped by a wound that just never healed.
I'll keep holding on.
When Mick was only 3 years old, his mother, Maureen Taylor, walked out on him, leaving him to be raised by his father, Reg, a barber. And that early abandonment left a deep scar. And years later, that pain would find its voice in a song that would resonate with millions. Truly, this song hits you. It just cuts deep.
I'll keep holding on.
The spark for Holding Back the Years, that didn't come from a heartbreaker or headline. It actually came from an art class. While studying fine art at the Manchester School of Art, Mick Hucknall was struck by something that his teacher said. So the best creations came from a place of unconscious expression, when the artist stops thinking and just simply lets the emotions flow. So he wrote 2 songs after that. First was about ice cream. Second was one of the most heart-wrenching of the 80s.
Wasted all those years.
Mick Hucknall first recorded Holding Back the Years back in 1982 with his punk outfit, the Frantic Elevators.
Holding back the years.
It was raw, emotional, and missing one key ingredient, one that he would add years later, Tim Kellett's trumpet solo. Kellett, who handled both keys and trumpets for the band, had been listening to Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. He was fascinated by Davis's use of a Harmon mute. It's the 3rd single from Simply Red's debut album, Picture Book. Holding Back the Years pushed up the charts to number 6 in Canada, number 3 in Holland, number 2 in the UK, number 1 in Ireland, and here on the Billboard Hot 100. Coming up next on the 86 Countdown, it's the return of Boston after an 8-year absence with Amanda at number 9. Boston's highly anticipated comeback with the 3rd stage album in 86 featured the implementation of the Tom Scholz created rock band guitar processor. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one because it's actually featuring in another countdown really soon, where I go into more detail with an interview. But it was a massive comeback for Boston after 8 years out of the game with Brad Delp's soaring vocal. Amanda was Boston's highest charting single ever, shooting at number 1 in Canada, in the Billboard Hot 100, and of course on the mainstream rock chart.
I'm in love with you.
Countdown of 86 continues with one of the most interesting tracks for one of the coolest duos of all time. Placing at number 8, I got Pet Shop Boys with the West End Girls. A synth-pop miracle put them on the map, this song, and started a career that so far has produced 44 top 40 hits in the UK. Lead singer Neil Tennant actually started out as a music critic for Smash Hits, but he knew he could write and compose songs as well as the ones that he was reviewing. So he quit. He quit to do music. His coworkers ridiculed him, but he had the last laugh when the song became a global smash. But it wasn't without his trials. West End Girls was released in 84, but it failed everywhere except in Belgium. It hit number 1 there. Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe knew they had a hit, but they couldn't get the sound just right. They had a falling out with their first producer, manager, and due to contractual obligations, they were sidelined for a year. They were unable to release new music, but they never gave up. In 1985, they signed with EMI. They put out Opportunities, Let's Make Lots of Money, another great song. That was their debut. It flopped. Still, they believed in West End Girls, so they went back into the studio, but this time with producer Stephen Hague. Hague stripped away some of the club elements and gave the song a brooding cinematic build, turning it into something much darker, much more haunting. The bold move worked like a charm, and it broke Pet Shop Boys wide open. West End Girls landed at number 1 in many countries, such as New Zealand, Norway, Finland, of course, the Finland station, the UK, and here on the Billboard Hot 100. Coming in at number 7 on the countdown of the top 11 songs of 86, I've got the mighty Van Halen with their new lead singer, the Red Rocker. It's Van Halen with Dreams. You know, when the Red Rocker was with Van Halen, he was the lead vocalist and, of course, the primary lyricist, and he told me the story behind creating Dreams. There are songs, in my opinion, that are game changers. They are paradigm shifts. They change the way that you look at the world. Dreams was that song, and you've written a few of those. Let's talk about 5150 and Dreams.
What I brought to Van Halen was just who and what I am. Not an accident. It wasn't contrived. It was Sammy Hagar, who and what I was at that moment, but very inspired by Eddie Van Halen's musicianship. He inspired me to write songs like Dreams and later on like Right Now and When It's Love and Love Walks In. You know, to me, goosebump songs. Look at that. Talking about best of both worlds. My lyrics at that time is what was happening was I just left a biggest tour of my life. I made the most money I'd ever made in my life. And I was struggled so long and had been so poor as a kid growing up that I finally wanted to bathe in it. I finally said, after the VOA, I Can't Drive 55, had my 3 platinum albums in a row. I said, man, I've got enough money and I'm happy enough and with my success that I want to take a break. Shaved my head, not shaved, but, cut my hair really short. Hadn't done that forever, since 77. And I started reading Ruth Montgomery and Ayn Rand, Ouspensky, Einstein's Theory of Relativity. Yeah. I was reading that kind of stuff. Wow. What the hell was wrong with me? And I was wanting to write about it. I was wanting to write about dimensions. I was wanting to write about extraterrestrials, about past lives. I started writing those kind of songs. And I had written Give the Live. And Eagles Fly, which became on my next solo record, could have been Van Halen songs. That's the direction I was wanting to go. And then Eddie comes with this beautiful music. And, we both looked at each other like, without what is understood need not be discussed. When we looked at each other in the eye, it was like, hey man, you inspire me. Yeah, well, you inspire me. And it was like, well, let's take this somewhere.
Van Halen's Dreams was the second single release from the 5150 album, making its mark at rock radio, where it ended up at number 6 and at number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100. Much bigger than its chart position, though. Our next song on the countdown is full of innuendos that were subtly scattered throughout another iconic video on MTV, maybe the most iconic. I got Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel at number 6. Truly, it's quite possibly the most extraordinary music video ever created. Made up of over 100 hours of filming and a lot of patience by Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel had lived on the fringes of pop culture stardom for decades. But, after releasing this song and its amazing video and its spectacular album, one of the best albums ever, his genius was on everyone's radar. And in the process, he even one-upped his former bandmates, Phil Collins and Genesis. He stole the number 1 spot from one of their biggest hits, Invisible Touch. He replaced him at the top of the charts. And most people don't realize, they didn't realize at the time, and they still aren't aware, that this innocent, fun-loving hit, Sledgehammer, is all about sex. More on that in a sec. So the legend goes that when Peter Gabriel replaced his former band Genesis at number 1, Phil Collins wanted to send a note that said, "Congratulations, bastard." Sledgehammer is catchy. Oh, so catchy. It's funky. It's packed with horns. But beneath that slick production lies a cheeky barrage of innuendo. The lyrics don't just flirt with suggestion. They dive headfirst into a pile of phallic metaphors, all delivered with a wink and a grin, and an oh-so catchy melody, for sure. You could have a steam train. Peter Gabriel was channeling the spirit of old-school blues and soul from the 50s and 60s. where artists often mask raw desire with clever double meanings and playful hooks. Think Little Richard, think Muddy Waters. Sledgehammer is cut from that same cloth, just wrapped in a shiny 80s production sheen. As Peter once put it, sex can break through barriers when other forms of communication are not working too well. Sledgehammer marked a major milestone for Peter Gabriel. It was his first big hit in the US, and actually the only song of his to hit number one. We're up to number 5 on the countdown, and I've got, just a beautiful song. The Way It Is by Bruce Hornsby and the Range.
That's just the way it is.
A track with poignant lyrics backed by world-class musicianship. The Way It Is isn't just a catchy piano-driven tune. It's actually got serious social gravity behind it.
Said, hey, old man, how can you stand to think that way?
Bruce Hornsby wrote it with the civil rights movement in mind, and when he sings about the law passed in '64, of course, he's talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That law was meant to put an end to discrimination in public spaces, government, and the workplace.
Well, they passed a law in '64 to give those who ain't got a little more.
Bruce wasn't just given a history lesson. His lyrics are a call to not get comfortable or accept injustice as just the way it is. That's the song. He's urging people to push back against the idea that nothing can change. It's a quiet protest wrapped in a great pop song.
Some things will never change.
Might be the most unlikely number 1 hit of the entire decade. Now, Bruce Hornsby had been working as a staff songwriter for years with no luck of getting a record deal. By the way, I'm a huge Bruce Hornsby fan, one of my favorites. With his attempts to appeal to popular taste falling short, he decided to make a demo of songs in his own style, ECM jazz, and included this track. He sent the demo to a new label called Windham Hill, which specialized in vocal groups. They offered him a deal. So did some major labels that also got a hold of it. Hornsby signed with RCA because they offered him creative freedom.
Said, hey, little boy, you can't go where the others go.
RCA was rewarded when this song and this album became huge hits, and nobody could have predicted this. It came out of nowhere. The Way It Is evokes really compassion most of all, and changing for the better, and coming together to be one.
Ah, but don't you believe them?
The song became a smash hit. Went to number 15 in the UK, number 12 in Australia, number 8 in Ireland, number 6 in Spain, number 3 in Belgium, number 1 in Canada, and here on the Billboard Hot 100.
That's just the way it is.
A man can tell 1,000 lies. I've learned my lesson well. It's part of an insightful verse written and sung by one of the biggest icons of the 80s and beyond, and her very best song. The lyric is from my number 4 pick on the countdown, Madonna with Live to Tell. Now, Live to Tell started out as just a haunting, moody melody. Producer Patrick Leonard had composed it for a film called Fire with Fire back in 1986. He imagined it as part of the movie's score, but when he played it for the studio, they turned it down. Said it was too somber, too intense, it just didn't fit. So the instrumental sat in limbo waiting for the right moment. I actually met Patrick at his home in LA, and here's what he told me about it.
There was a movie called Fire and Ice, and it was being directed by a guy named Duncan Gibbon. And my managers knew him, and so he said, you know, maybe you could score this movie. So I watched the movie and said, I don't want to hear your temp score. And I sat one morning watching it, and I went, so that works for this movie. And wrote this as an instrumental piece for the movie. And Madonna was coming over. I asked her if she would, as a favor, write lyrics for it, because I thought obviously it'll bolster my chances to get this film score if I have a lyric by Madonna. And she was on her way to the house, and the director called me and said the producer hired somebody else to score it. So she gets to the house, and because there was no cell phone to tell her to turn around and go home.
Right.
She gets to the, and yeah, good.
I know.
Right? She gets to the house and says, well, let me hear it. Sean's done a movie. Let me hear it anyway. So I play her the track, and she sits on the floor and she writes the lyrics. And she goes in the other room in this little house I had in Coldwater Canyon, and she sang it down on this 8-track demo, and that was the last time she sang it. And that was it. That was the record. And it was my demo. We transferred the 8-track demo and added to it. That was it. That was Live to Tell.
Hope I live to tell the secret I have learned.
So that's where it came from. And then when there was a 2-page billboard thing about how huge this song was, I just wanted to, my managers actually wanted to put the woman's name who hired somebody else and say, write again, and send it to her. Because it was a big record.
Burn inside of me.
You know, no matter what your feelings are about Madonna, there is no doubt that songs like Live to Tell, Like a Prayer, Oh Father, Papa Don't Preach, This Used to Be My Playground, and many more prove that she could write deeply poetic songs that cut to the bone.
If I have the chance again.
No offense, but today's pop icons like Taylor Swift and Rihanna have never written a serious classic like these examples, not even close. Live to Tell was a smash solo for Madonna. She took a big risk releasing it as her first single from her True Blue album, the follow-up to her #1 breakthrough, Like a Virgin. Her label begged for her to release an upbeat song for her first one out of the gate, a pop song. But she was right. The single went to #2 in the UK, but it went to #1 in Greece, Italy, Canada, and here on the Billboard Hot 100. Truly a haunting song. Back to the countdown we go at #3 for the top 11 songs on 1986. We're going with one of the 80s biggest cheating songs and a true rock classic. I've got the outfield with Your Love.
Josie's on a vacation far away.
Josie's on a vacation far away. Just a great cold intro on Your Love that was delivered perfectly by the late Tony Lewis and his distinctive high tenor. You know, when we heard Tony belt out that line, we were instantly hooked. One of the best lines ever.
Come around and talk it over. So many.
Sadly, Tony died in 2020. Man, I was so fortunate to get a chance to speak with him the year before he passed. We had a great discussion about this iconic hit written by his friend and bandmate who died 6 years before that. And I was proud to tell him how much we all loved hearing him sing a true rock classic in his last full interview. What influenced you when you were singing? Like, because you've just got such a distinct voice. It's like the halfway point between Sting and Steve Perry, but completely original, like you've never heard it before. What were some of the vocalists that you grew up that you loved?
It's definitely, I mean, the most impressionable band or singer is definitely Sting and John Anderson from Yes. And that high, pure voice, you know, the guy from Survivor, you know, it's always appealed to me. And John was a very big Steve Perry fan. And I was, and still am. I remember in the 60s, there was this program called Rawhide. And it was Johnny Ray. Rawhide! My dad said, oh, you can sing really high, can't you? I said, can I? I didn't realise. So that, just having that sort of, I don't know, having that scale, it was interesting. And when my reading of a song like Your Love, like any other song, I own it. I have to own it. It's like an actor. You got to, if you've got a script, you've got to own that script. And I just wanted to own that song, make it sound like it was, you know, I knew what I was doing, but I don't.
Your Love had its best success in the Netherlands, where the single peaked at #17, and in the US, where it was a multi-format hit, climbed to #6 in the Billboard Hot 100, and in the same position on the mainstream rock chart. But the song has had incredible staying power as one of the most enduring tracks of the 80s. It's almost up to 1 billion on YouTube. Man, the top 3 was tough. Looking at the runner-up, the bridesmaid position on our countdown of the top 11 songs of 86, it's the Teen Prodigy that they said sounded like Ray Charles on helium. A little help from the Queen of Funk. At #2, we're bringing you Higher Love with Steve Winwood and Shaka Khan. Think about it. There must be a higher love. down in the heart or hidden in the stars above. Without it, life is wasted time. Ah, love it. Steve Winwood gave us passages for our minds and our hearts when he composed Higher Love for sure. And during the final production phase of Back in the High Life, one of the best albums to come out in '86, Steve Winwood was collaborating closely with engineer Tom Lord-Alge and his brothers to refine the album's sonic texture. They're putting in the work, and then as that work progressed on the track Higher Love, producer Russ Titelman sought to further enrich the arrangement by enlisting two key figures from the band, Rufus, Queen of Funk herself, Chaka Khan, who we've already talked about today, and session drummer John J.R. Robinson. While JR completed his designated drum tracks and awaited Chaka's setup, he casually performed an unscripted drum fill. Recognizing its potential, Tom Lord-Alge, he instinctively recorded the moments. So glad he did. Chaka was equally struck by what she heard. She called it voodoo. To integrate this spontaneous performance into the final mix, Tom employed a dual tape machine setup, introducing a timing offset that allowed the fill to lead seamlessly into the downbeat of Higher Love. And that made the song a game changer. This technique effectively bridged the improvisational energy of the fill with the structured opening of the track. Russ was stoked with the result and elected to not only incorporate the drum fill as the introduction to Higher Love, but also to position it as the opening moment of the album itself. This decision lent the record a distinctive, compelling sonic entry point, combining serendipity, total serendipity, with technical precision. Chaka Khan's involvement wasn't by chance, though. Producer Russ Titelman had deliberately brought her in, knowing her voice could elevate the track even more. But when she walked into the studio, there wasn't a clear plan for exactly what she was going to sing. No rigid charts, no fixed arrangement, much like J.R. Robinson's off-the-cuff drum fill that ended up opening the album and making this song so distinctive. Chaka's contribution was born out of spontaneity, pure spontaneity. She listened, she felt the groove, and she let instinct take over. What followed was just pure magic. Layered, soulful harmonies and vocal textures that seemed to materialize out of thin air. It wasn't just another background part. It was a presence, a feeling. It turned Higher Love into something truly transcendent. With masterful use of Chaka Khan's amazing voice, Stevie Winwood had a massive smash, massive hit with Higher Love. The song just brings euphoric joy every time it comes on the airwaves. A much-deserved #1 single for Steve. Hit the top of the Canadian singles chart, the Billboard Hot 100, the mainstream rock chart. It was hard to put Higher Love at #2. But the track I selected as the #1 song in our countdown of the top 11 songs of 1986 just also happens to be my personal favorite of the entire decade, if not all time. To me, it's the greatest feel-good, catchiest song ever, talking about Something About You by Level 42. I know, I've talked about this song before. I know, but I'm going to give you a different take this time. I'm going to give you a little piece of the interview that I did with Mike Lindup that I haven't shown before. Mike Lindup talked about this cool track. It still sounds amazing today. Mike, of course, co-wrote the song with Mark King, Phil and Roland Gould, and Wally Badarou. He also sang background vocals at amazing falsetto and played the keyboards. Here's what Mike told me.
The song itself just has obviously stood the test of time, and that's something that we could never have, orchestrated or arranged. It just so happened that the synergy just worked, and the way that we played and the vocals and the arrangement and the timing and just everything just seemed to happen.
That's how the great ones do, it seems. But this song was acknowledged in 1991 BMI Awards for 1 million U.S. performances. As a young kid, I always wanted to go behind the song, figure out how it came together, how the magic. And it sounds like there was a true magic in the studio when you came with the lyric change.
Yeah. It was like when we came back into the control room to listen to it with all the vocals that we put on, it just had this larger than life thing. And it wasn't only the vocal performance, it was just the vocals with the music and the fact that they just blended so well. And the lyrics, and I mean, it's a love song. I mean, you know, it's obvious to say so, but it's not an A to B love song. It's a kind of, you know, going to B and C and F and then getting back there in terms of the lyrical content. But a lot of our songs are breakup songs, and there are very few that are actually, you know, I love you type songs. And Something About You is one. I think Lessons in Love is just about another. So that helped as well. We might have sold more records if we'd written a few more love songs, but then...
Well, that falsetto, I mean, as I've said before, one of the greatest falsettos recorded on a song from the 80s, in my opinion. It's one of those that I've heard it thousands of times, but it always just makes the hair on my neck stand up. Hits me right in the feels. This was always going to be the number one song for me. For me, the easy vocal and the funky bass line by Mark King, the legendary falsetto of Mike Lindup, and the sophisticated new wave sound with its jazz overtones made it stand out from the rest of the pack. I mean, top-notch production and a fluid arrangement make it the definitive 80s song. I mean, it's a song that will turn the worst day of your life into a moment where you're grateful just to be alive. It's like Nietzsche said, without music, life would be a mistake. He was talking about this. How can one not belt this one out whenever you hear it? If I could only listen to one song for the rest of my life, this would be the song, no doubt. Now, by the time Something About You became a hit for Level 42 in 1986, the band had been around since 1979 with several top 25 hits in their native UK, including a great song, The Sun Goes Down, that went to number 10 in 83. Something About You was Level 42's 15th single, moving to number 10 in New Zealand, number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 here, should have been the number 1 hit, number 6 in the UK, and number 5 in Canada. The success on the charts for Level 42 was short-lived. The band only had another hit with Lessons in Love that peaked at number 12 in 87. A great song, though. Now, from a chart perspective, Something About You wasn't one of the biggest songs in 1986. Far from it. Ranked number 38 on the Billboard year-end survey. But man, all these years later, can you name a better overall song from that time? Listen to the whole song and tell me I'm wrong. Seriously, it's perfection. So leave me a comment about that. That's our countdown for 86, our last of the 80s. What would you like to see next? Would you like to see the top 10 albums of each year? I think these countdowns are fun. Let me know your memories. What's your top 5 of 86? Your top 10? What are your memories of these songs? What were you doing in 1986? Can we take a time machine and go back to 1986? It was a great year. Let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.